On June 25th, 2025, we have a new moon happening at 4 degrees Cancer. And as I talked about earlier in the month, this new moon is going to be happening exactly where Mercury was last moon phase, where the last full moon we had earlier in the month. And I think that it's really interesting because it is back at that same line, think before you speak, 52, line 1. And what it feels like is with the sun and the moon there, we have an illumination of energy or things that were said, and I would say repercussions or consequences of things that were said or posted or something that shouldn't have been said coming to fruition and things happening because of it. Because with the North Node in Gate 36 at the time, it really was talking about the idea of saying something that you don't really understand the consequences or you don't care about the consequences or you don't expect get what you think you're going to get. The expectations are there, but they're not going to be met. And so that's what we sort of have within this new moon. Maybe during the last nodal cycle that we had, sort of the end of January, right until sort of the middle of June, it was about chaos, crisis, energy for experiences, energy that is not really about building anything. It is more about just getting out in the world and experiencing life. Now we're moving into gate 22 and also 47, the nodes that we have been working with for a little while in June. And we're moving into energy that is much different. It is about experiential energy and individual energy. And so it is almost like a contemplative type of time where we're making sense of what exactly happened in all that time from the end of January until now. And then when you look at gate 47, line 5, the saint, where we have the south node, this is a line that only has an exaltation, but not a detriment, which is completely different from the last line in the south node was in, which was 47, line 6, which only had a detriment, but not an exaltation. So now we're getting the other side of the coin. And the saint basically says that there are oppressive things in the world. We might feel external oppression in our lives, in the world, but it's not something to get wrapped into because as soon as you get wrapped into it, it has you in its grasp and you really can't have much more than that feeling of oppression, being oppressed, not being able to live your life the way you want to live. And the North Node in Gate 22, line 5 is bringing the grace to move through the energy and to not get caught up in the feeling of oppression. Now, Gate 47 is connected to the idea that we want to have our experiences matter. We want to have our experiences get us something. And I think that that is the whole story of life, and that we're always trying to have an experience in our lives that meant something. And this is especially true if it is something that we found was very emotionally draining or it was very difficult, a very challenging experience in your life. And you go through it and you think, well, what was the point of that? And if you feel that there was no point in it and it was just nasty stuff that you had to deal with, that is much more difficult to accept than this concept of you found growth through it or something was better. You became a stronger person. You did find resilience. You did find grace through it. And what the nodes in 22 line 5 and 47 line 5 are saying is that no matter what you might feel, every experience that you've gone through, both challenging and ones that you felt really happy about, they're all part of your growth as a human. They're all part of your growth in this life. And sometimes, especially with Gate 47, because it is part of the 64 or 47 channel, which takes time for clarity. And sometimes you will see an experience that's been challenging for you, and you'll look at it and you'll think, well, what was the point of that? And you can't find an answer for it. And that is when we get that feeling of oppression. But what this energy is telling you is that the answer will come, the clarity will come, the reason will come. 1 year in the future, 10 years in the future, where you suddenly start to understand, okay, that was why this happened. It usually always comes at some point. I think there was always some moment where you feel that if it's just something as simple as, yes, it helped me grow so that now, if something comes in my path, I know how to cope with it. It did provide me with, again, grace, resilience. It showed me that no matter what I believed, I could and couldn't do at that moment, I surpassed my own expectations and I made it through to the other side. And so that is what this energy in the background frequency can be telling us. It's about not getting caught up in the things that happened and why they happened the way they did. And I think that if you look at this from a global perspective, we could look at why is everything happening the way it's happening? Why is the world the way it is right now? And it is in a time of huge transition. I think that the way the world looks like now is probably very different than what you thought it would look like. And if it isn't that case, that's fine. We all have our own sort of way to view it. So you could see a lot of things happening in the world, and you could see a lot of things happening in your life and your friends, your family, whatever. And you think, well, what's the point of this? And that is when it's easy to sort of to dig into this feeling of, wow, there's no real reason for this other than it's just horrific. But that's not the truth. And that's what the nodes are trying to tell us. There is something within everything. And when you find out what that means for you, it'll be divine timing. And until that moment, it's about still living, still moving through life, because that's what we do as humans. We continue to move through life. And I think it's really, really interesting that for this new moon, we have two lines that are being played out that both have the theme self-defense. And they're both completely different. You have gate 23 line 2, which is called self-defense, and that's individual energy. And then we also have gate 15 line 6 called self-defense, and that's logical energy. So we have these two ways of looking at how we protect ourselves. And so, one of the ways to protect ourselves is to understand if our mind is moving in a way where we are feeling repressed, where we are feeling anxiety, because gate 47 is an awareness gate that can bring anxiety. And then we also have gate 22, which is about nervousness. If you are feeling those energies, it is something to look at where there is some form of self-defense, or I would call it even more self-protection. Now, on a global stage, I think it will be self-defense, and I'll talk about that in a minute or two. But from a personal perspective, this is self-protection. So we're looking at what can I do to protect myself, to protect my energy. And Mercury in gate 56, line 2 is giving us a little bit of the answer of how we do protect ourselves. And it's asking you to look at the stories you tell about yourself. And I know that this is sounds cliche because I know a lot of people talk about the stories you tell about yourself, but this is literally the storyteller. I mean, that's gate 56 is about telling stories. And in the second line, this is about looking at your life and saying, what do I say about myself? How do I see myself? Are there things that I think about myself? Are there stories about who I am that I tell myself every day that maybe aren't keeping me in a place of self-empowerment? And if that's the case, now is the time to look at how I can disentangle from those old narratives and move into something new and write a new story. And I think that it is a beautiful line where Mercury is in that energy that is literally, you could be writing your story, as in physically journaling your story, or writing a book about your story, or telling your story in a video. It is some level of communication. But it could just be the idea of understanding that the things that you say about yourself are not beneficial to your life. And now it's time to change direction and move into something that is more empowering. Because as we move into the next global cycle, self-empowerment is key to everything, because in your self-empowerment, you're going to believe in your own self, and you're going to listen to yourself and know that you understand what you need in your life, and you're going to go for it, as opposed to trying to take care of other people's things and not really looking at your own life. And that is where we're completely moving away. We're moving away from the tribal energy into individual energy, where we're seeing ourselves as just as important as anybody else. That's the biggest key to this energy. And so this is the first step to helping you create the self-empowerment to feel good about yourself, but also to trust yourself in the decisions you make going forward in your life. And if we go back to gate 52, line 1, and this idea of being very thoughtful about what you say and how you articulate it, and basically what you share. If we look at it in regards to the mandala, we have gate 15, line 6 moves into gate 52, line 1. So we learn from the extremes about the pattern we want to lock into. And so it is basically saying that Jupiter is teaching us something that we're going to lock into, a pattern we're going to lock into. But it also brings us into this point of after all the extremes that Jupiter is bringing, we now move into a sense of stillness, sitting with a process and allowing all the details to coalesce and become the patterns that we want to incorporate in our lives that will give us the rewards that we are wanting to have as we move forward. And gate 15, line 6 is very interesting. And now Jupiter in this is basically talking about Jupiterian themes, and this would be related to justice, rules, regulations. It could be related to higher education, spirituality, and anything that is overexpanding or expanding in some way. It is a benefic, so it can be good things happening as well. Jupiter in 15 line 6 is saying, the catchphrase would be, don't mistake my kindness for weakness. And so this is basically saying that just because you're nice doesn't mean that you're willing to be walked over. And that's what this energy is bringing to the forefront. And so this is looking at potential justice systems, rules, regulations, and higher education. All those types of themes coming to the forefront, all connected to Gate 52, Line 1, which will put world leaders or people who are in powerful places on the defensive, self-defense. And it's basically saying that they're going to be on the defensive because what it's really saying is the idea that people are underestimating other people who seem to be kind and moral and nice. They're underestimating that beneath all that, there is still fire. What it's saying is that it's the coming to fruition of underestimating the power of an opponent. And the opponent comes up with, you could say, you always thought somebody could never do something, that they're weak. They're the type of person that they go along to get along. And suddenly this person says, no, I'm not doing this anymore. This is the end of the line for you. I'm not going to support you anymore. I'm not going to not fight. Now is the time where I'm going to stand my ground because this matters. And this is, again, the themes of justice. Now, the other perspective of self-defense is that we're looking at gate 23, line 2. And now I look at this perspective of we have a lot of energy and money being directed into AI right now and sort of the future of AI. And we have a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars that are being injected into the concept that AI will be something, uh, you know, catastrophically amazing in the future. And what I also see is potential for the people who are responsible for this AI, the companies who have been touting it as the next coming, finally coming under serious scrutiny and saying, look, this is not doing what you said it's doing. When are we getting money back from what we're putting in? And this is where I feel like there's going to be some energy for people being called out, especially anybody who's high up in the AI field who is sort of the pioneers or the front runners in the AI field or technology finally saying, okay, enough is enough. We didn't get what we have been paid for. You better come up with something soon because we're losing our patience with all the money we've been funneling into it and nothing's really coming out. They call them zombie corns. Instead of a unicorn, they call them zombie corns, which means that you have these kind of companies where all the money is being put into it with the promise and the hope and dream that eventually something's going to come out of it. But most times it's just money going in. It's like a bottomless pit. And this is where I feel like the bottomless pit is turning into something else where these people are in a defense mode. And there's also potential for self-defense connected to oversharing, saying too much, posting things earlier in the month that are really coming into question right now and saying, okay, you said this. Okay, now there's going to be some consequences based on what you said because this is probably something you shouldn't have told us because it's going to come back to haunt you kind of thing. And that's kind of the energy I see for this as a global perspective. And finally, with Uranus and Gate 8, line 6, and this is global and personal, I think. Basically, this is a line that is saying that the more we are tapped into cosmic timing, the better we can align with the path for us, the better that we can align for what is for us in the future, especially when it comes to individuality or personal authority and those types of things. And it really does feel like it is a shout out to all those esoteric arts or esoteric practices like human design, like astrology, like numerology, like anything that is tarot or any of those types of things that are sort of using some level of prediction. It is a shout out to them to understand that they are beneficial. And I think that as we move further into 2027, using our intuition personally, but also having people as guides to help us to be the best version of ourselves in how we use our intuition. And a sixth line is basically just doing their thing and we're learning from them. And that is sort of the way of the future where intuitively we are growing in leaps and bounds and understanding that we do have the skills and tools that we need to help us navigate the future. But it begins with the belief that we are strong and we are capable and we do have the resilience and also the talent and the ability to be unique, but also to have our unique way of understanding the world through our intuition, whatever that looks like for you and I. And that is what I have for you for this new moon. And I do hope that it's a time that you can tap into your cosmic timing and figure out your path and trajectory forward. And until next time, take care and bye for now.